Hi, everyone. It sounds like you are continuing to have an amazing experience. It's the buzz in the room that has continued over the last day and a half, and I understand it because I'm feeling it myself. It has been absolutely incredible. We're learning together, we're growing together, we're sharing, and getting fired up about going back and taking on, continuing these incredibly important responsibilities that we have back in our homes. My name is Deborah Gist, and I am the Commissioner of Education in the wonderful state of Rhode Island nearby. And yay! Oh, thank you. We love Rhode Island. I couldn't be more excited to be here, and I want to just thank Governor Bush again, Patricia, and everyone at the foundation, the board, the sponsors, everyone who came together to make this happen, because it has really been an awesome experience, and I know you share that too. I want to also join in welcoming Governor Pence, who was able to come and spend a little bit of time with us this afternoon. You know, one of the things I think is fantastic about this event and this work, truly, is that it transcends politics. Now, believe me, I understand fully that education can be political, but when you really get down to it, I know, right? But when you really get down to it, there's nothing more important and nothing that should be uniting us more than education. Education affects everything. It affects healthcare, it affects our economy, it affects social services, it affects everything. And it affects the quality of life of everyone in this room and everyone back home in each of our own communities. So it is incredibly important. And so it encourages me when I can see people come together in a room like this who are from a variety of different political persuasions, and we can put those things aside and focus on what's best for our students. And know that while we may not always agree, and we probably don't, on so many things, what we do agree on is what's best for our students and making sure that we have excellent schools in our communities to serve them well. So as we close out this wonderful conference and this very productive last day and a half, we're really fortunate that we're going to be able to hear from someone who's been truly active in the work of improving education for our students, Mayor of Chicago, Rahm Emanuel. Yep. Now, we all in the room know the mayor from his role on the national scene. And we also know him from his direct and personal role that he's played in education. In fact, last year, Chicago experienced some turmoil that resulted in the city's schools being closed for about 10 days. And though this was costly to the city and incredibly disruptive for everyone in Chicago, particularly the children and families, of course, Mayor Emanuel and the teachers, and they worked together, and they were able to resolve the dispute, get teachers back to work, get the students back to school, and get everyone focused back on what matters most, which is the quality of their education. So among his accomplishments in his work in Chicago in education, Mayor Emanuel has implemented full-day kindergarten, has expanded access to early childhood education, created the largest online homework assistance program in the country, developed a summer learning program that links students with school programming based on their unique interests. He has an incredible STEM program that he was just telling me about, in which he's partnered with businesses, and students are able to get real-life hands-on experiences and then take those directly into the workforce. He's launched a College to Careers program, and graduation rates are up dramatically. And he's empowering his school leaders as drivers of success and drivers of change. Importantly, Mayor Emanuel believes deeply in students and their ability to achieve no matter what their background, and even more importantly, perhaps, he has the courage to do what it takes in order to ensure that that happens. He has high standards, and he's making the investments that need to be made to ensure that there's a great education for every child in Chicago. So please join me in welcoming Mayor Rahm Emanuel.
Thank you. Thank you. Maybe you should not stand, wait till you hear the speech, see if you like what you're... Deb, I do want to thank you for that introduction. There are moments like that you wish your parents were here, because you know your mother would be proud and your father would be amazed. So thank you for that. Just a little bit earlier, I said to the governor, says, do you want to take questions? I said, since my staff is back in Chicago, let's run rogue. I'll take some questions at the end. That's what happens when I'm let loose out of control. Let me say a couple things I want to talk about. I want to talk a little about Chicago, about what we're doing. There's two particular subjects that I want to talk about that I think, because of the debate, they often get lost. Now, a lot of our notion of accountability and driving education reform is focused on teachers, solely on teachers. I actually think it puts too much burden on them alone. The culture of accountability should include school principals. Teachers do a fabulous job, we all know, but if you have a school without a strong leader, the teacher can't buck that. And too often, the whole discussion of what goes on with the school principal, the principal holding that principal accountable for what happens at that school, both atmosphere, results, holding them accountable for the culture they create, is a way you create not only and demand the leadership, but can make the change that teachers then can perform to and get the type of educational achievement. Second, I think too often the discussion of choice is limited to charter versus neighborhood school. And I don't think that's the right way to approach the question of choice. And because these debates have been narrowed, they become politically polarizing, and I don't think that's good for education. Now, first, I want to say I am not an education reformer. I do not see myself as an education reformer. I believe in educational excellence. And I will look at and study any reform that gets to that goal. But I do not describe what Beth Swanson, who's my deputy mayor on education, is here. I do not describe what we're doing as education reform. I'm achieving and trying to get towards the goal, 100% college ready, 100% college bound, and that's the goal for every child in the city of Chicago. Now, we have made great strides in Chicago, and Deb was was going over some of the things that we have done. Chicago students have posted record growth in math and reading scores, resulting in an additional 53 schools achieving level 1 status, and it's the largest one-year increase ever, with 172 schools now out of about 600 at level 1. Chicago students have also reached the highest ACT scores on average, hit the highest graduation rate. It's at 65%. Last year we had one of the biggest one-year jumps, a full 4.5%, and the lowest dropout rates ever in the history of the city of Chicago. In fact, when I was running for mayor, we had about 53% of the students were graduating and about 47 dropping out, so almost like a one-to-one. This year, we had 65% of our students graduate, and we have at track, you could see if you do it by freshmen on track, we're going to get to 80% in the next 4 years for the city of Chicago. That just a short time ago was almost one-to-one graduate to dropout. Now, we have a lot more work to do and a lot more work to get done in achieving this. But we have a single goal, as I said, which is about, and most importantly, is 100% college ready, 100% college bound. And we cannot limit the discussion of what we're going to do. So today I'd like to talk about two things, and one is school principals and how we approach it and what we need to do. Because too much, in my view, is about, as I said, is about the teachers. Before that, I would like to just talk about a couple things we're also doing that Deb alluded to. One, obviously, she said we got away over those 10 days how to work together. We used to have, for the city of Chicago, one of, if not, the shortest school day and shortest school year in the country. Yeah, that was the answer. It comes as a surprise. Our kids for elementary school, we would go to school for 5 hours and 45 minutes. Their school year was 171 days. They now get a full school day. We added an hour and 15 minutes to their education every day, and 2 weeks at the end of the year. It's the single largest increase anywhere by any public school system ever before, 30%. We also, as I said, added the 2 weeks on the end. Now, when you add it all up, a child starting in kindergarten, going all the way through high school, is the equivalent of adding 2.5 years to their education. That tells you how low the base was before. Now, if a majority of your kids are at poverty or below, would you really think the trick to their success of getting out of poverty was the shortest school day and the shortest school year in America? So we added that time. That's what it was. Yes, it was a battle. It was a 10-year discussion in the city of Chicago. That discussion's over. And you couldn't have the growth rates you're getting, in my view, and we're seeing, if, in fact, you were constraining teachers from being able to do what they needed to do because of these artificial times. And the children of the city of Chicago will no longer have to pick between math or music. They're going to get math and music. They're no longer going to pick between reading or recess. They're going to get reading and recess. It's not going to be a choice anymore between arithmetic or the arts. They're going to get a complete education like everybody else in this room got a complete education. And we're not going to make false choices based on an arbitrary set of time, which is wrong for them. And it was not good for their future, not good for what they could do. Deb also alluded to, and I say this as a son of a pediatrician. Some people like to say son of and something else, but I would say son of a pediatrician. But Chicago also had, for half the children who went to kindergarten, they used to get a half day, 2 hours. It was not 2.5 hours. It was not an education. It was babysitting. This year, because of reforms we made at the central office, every child going to kindergarten will get a full school day. Now, for us, given that we're probably the final last big school system that had half the children get a half day, that's a big deal. It's the norm everywhere else. It's now the norm in the city of Chicago. In addition to that, we've added 5,000 more children to pre-K. These are all being accomplished, as you know, with the federal and state actually pulling resources out. So we have to make up for what they pull out, plus go farther. We added 5,000 children to pre-K. A full day of pre-K with wraparound services for their parents. We did our own race to the top model in the city of Chicago, and we picked the best providers. That included public schools, Head Start, charters for the first time, and schools that are also parochial schools in the city of Chicago, all using the resources based on the best model out there. She also, Deb, noted our online tutoring. We have a teacher in every neighborhood library. 80 libraries, they all have a teacher in after school helping kids on homework. We've just started, through the library card, which is free, online tutoring from 7 in the morning till 11 o'clock at night, English and Spanish, on any topic from kindergarten education to first year of college. And you could do it with your library card, home, vacation, school, library, wherever you are. Your library card is your passport to that tutor. And it's all driven towards 100% college ready and 100% college bound. The other thing, although Deb did not mention, which I am quite proud of, is actually came out of our strike. We actually realized, because we had more resources that were providing services, but we weren't using them when we had the 10 days. So this year in our park district, we have a huge summer camp program. We instituted a half-hour reading at camp for every child. We have our library, some I started in Congress, but I kept it as mayor, called Rahm's Readers. You read 3 books. So the last year, the kids, 1.3 million books were read by 60,000 kids. So I challenged the head of the libraries, if you can get to 70,000 kids reading over 2 million books, I'll do the polar plunge, which is you jump in the lake in January. Well, the little bums did 2.1. I think somebody cheated. And yeah. We have the most electronic badge system. Our museums, the Shed Aquarium, the Museum of Science and Industry, they all were part of it. Our places of worship were part of it. 200,000 kids all participated in a summer learning as a way to attack the summer slide that we all know, experience, and everywhere. Now that's all the build-up to the area of what I want to talk about today. So thank you for living through the greatest hits of what we've just done. But what I think must be a focus on, I said, school principals, because they create the environment, the atmosphere, the ability of who do you hold accountable for the academic success of that school. Now, first of all, I believe in a culture of accountability from the mayor to the chancellor of the schools, to the principal, to the teachers, to the parents. Anybody who's an adult must be held accountable for our children and their success. Everybody, and nobody gets a pass. It is all our responsibility. And I do believe, and there's one side note, and that is that while we're known in the city of Chicago for the tallest skyscraper, we never stand taller than when we actually invest in our children. And if we do that, we can actually have a lot to be proud of. Now, the most important door a child walks through for their education is the front door of their home. That is where their first instructor happens, that is where their first kind of moral grounding happens, and is in the home. And the school can actually accelerate what they learn at home, because at home is where they learn the value in education. It's at school that they get an education. And we have to understand and constantly appreciate that. And so when we say the culture of accountability, it's not just at the school. It's in the mayor's office, superintendent of the schools, at home, the places of worship, everywhere they go. Now, what we've implemented at Chicago is a total revamping of our recruitment, our retention, and our rewards for them. First, we partner with top universities and organizations to better recruit, train, and keep our most effective principals. Chicago Public Schools is no longer in the business of recruiting principals and training them. That's given over to the universities, which I'll go into later. And we do it on that aspect. Second, putting a more rigorous selection process in place on the front end. Third, investing in continuous and comprehensive training and support for school principals, basic coach. Fourth, instituting the most aggressive principal evaluation system in the country, getting an equal sense of a scrub as we have done on the teacher side, on the principal side. Fifth, we give out bonuses based on the students' academic growth at the school, to school principals. And, okay, well, yeah. That must be a principal who got a bonus. And then six, providing principals with greater autonomy in their schools. The first one, partnering with top universities. So basically what we did is we got out of basically doing the principal recruitment. And training. We've given it to Harvard, TFA, Loyola, University of Illinois, Chicago Circle Campus, and new leaders for new schools. In Chicago, they now are training 75 to 85 new principals each year. We in Chicago now have quadrupled the number of principals trained than in past years. What used to be a system when you had an opening, we'd take it from another school, we were stealing from Peter to pay Paul. We now have the ability to have 3 or 4 applicants per opening for the system, which we never had before. Second, the selection process being more rigorous on the front end. We now have an extensive interview and selection process that includes real-life simulation for about 8 separate days, so we can assess how a principal performed before they're actually hired. Third, investing in continuous and comprehensive training and support for all school leaders. With the Chicago Executive Leadership Academy, we're providing principals and assistant principals and the network leaders with ongoing training and support. Hundreds of our principals have access to coaches, mentors, and daily support in their schools. An evaluation system. Each principal has a school academic performance target for the first time. And each student in the school has an individual growth target to hit each year, incentivizing the principals to support every teacher and every student with clear, defined goals for that year academically. And on top of the quantitative data, we're evaluating the culture a principal builds for their schools in order to achieve growth. How will they engage their families and the communities around them, supporting their teachers with professional development opportunities? building a culture for their students, and focusing on college and career readiness and achievement. Most importantly, does the principal have the vision and leadership skills needed to push the children in the school system? Rewarding principals with a bonus. I went out, I announced we were going to do this, and we raised $5 million. So over 5 years, we would get bonuses based on a rigorous set of standards of student growth and graduation rates, closing the achievement gap. 2 years ago when we started, we had about 83 principals get a bonus. A couple got $20,000, a couple got $10,000, well, more than a couple, and a number got $5,000. This year, we just finished it, and 134 individual principals, 6 got $20,000, a little over 50 got $10,000, and another group of 60 plus got $5,000. But it puts a reward system with a clear benchmark of what you have to achieve academically for the kids. Now, I think this is the most comprehensive school principal system in place for a rigorous evaluation, retention, recruitment effort. And I think there is no better place to drive the type of change and reform we need than with the school principals being part of the conversation of accountability. And I can give you chapter and verse of schools in the city of Chicago that were in one place the day before, you put a new principal in, and within 2 to 3 years, you can begin to see the results of a before and after process. Now, if you go to a school like Bateman in the city of Chicago, Dr. Pat Bracella. So let me give you a little of what he's done. He holds community reading circles for parents and toddlers that promote preschool literacy. He's working with Loyola University to improve teacher instructional practices for ELL students, giving these students the support they need to be obviously college ready. And he's offering voluntary professional development programs to his teachers, giving them options to sign up for topics that interest them. Now, since he got there, Bateman School now boasts the higher student growth than all the schools in the surrounding area, and has seen his reading scores grow by 8 points just last year alone. Not only are more students meeting state standards than ever before, 91% of the students achieved their growth targets in reading, and 85% met their growth targets in math since he got there as a school principal. Another example, Lindblom High School in Englewood on the south side of the city of Chicago. 8 years ago, Lindblom was closed. It had 110 students when it opened. Today, there are 1,100 students. In the last 8 years, Alan Mather has brought his ATC scores up, brought freshmen on track to graduate from 68% to 96.5%. This is in Englewood. 2 years ago, his graduates had the highest college persistence rates in the entire system of Chicago Public Schools. And last year, 120 of them were offered $15 million in scholarships. And Lindblom went from closed to a nearly 100% graduation under the leadership of Alan Mather. Part of his success now is done. He's done a teacher training center in biotechnology in partnership with Northwestern and Baxter Pharmaceutical, the largest Mandarin language program in the entire city, and one of the largest Arab programs in all of the United States of America. And we are building a new track and field to support their growing athletic program in that school. Just got approved by City Council. I thought I'd give it a shout out. One more school if I can, and this has a personal, for me, story. Last year, 2 years ago, we closed Piccolo schools on the west side of the city of Chicago. Turned it into one of our AUSL turnaround schools. And there was a big weekend, there was an Occupy, Don't Take Away Our Neighborhood school, public school, all teachers, all part of the union, just did a turnaround. It's our own original called AUSL model. In just 1 year, since Lori Campbell there, and she got a $5,000 bonus, there's been, the students' performance hovered around 20% of the students were meeting at that time, prior to it being closed, state standards. Since that time, there's been a performance improvement by 14% on their test scores and experienced over a 20% increase in science scores in 1 year alone. That's what she's accomplished. Now also, since we put the AUSL model there, in the prior year, when they were hovering at the level 3, they've now been moved to level 2. In the prior year, they spent $13,000 fixing windows that got broke on the weekends and in the evening. Last year, 2 windows. So not only were the kids academically doing better, it was welcomed by the neighborhood and community as part of the community in which it is educating the children from that school. Same kids, same building, different school principal. Totally different academic results. You could do that, and I know I can see some head shaking, throughout the systems in every other city. You put a new principal with the leadership ability, who's not scared to be held accountable, and working with the teachers with a great sense of an environment and atmosphere, and the parents. And it's like night and day based on the academic performance. And when you think about the debates and discussions we've had over the last 20 years, we talk about the sense of results and holding people accountable. We narrow the debate as if it's only the teacher's responsibility. First of all, it isn't. We know that. Second, the person that runs that building needs to be part of that conversation and dialogue. And when we narrow it, it becomes too politically polarizing. Let's ease the tension, and that's a unique experience for me, but let's ease the tension, and let's have an honest discussion and bring into the conversation the one person that creates an environment, an atmosphere, a culture, and is actually trained for accountability. And that's the school principal. And if we're going to talk about reform, you can't leave that person or that individual out of the conversation, number one. And number two, more importantly, you have to have a rigorous system to support exactly what you're trying to achieve and have a whole systematic approach to it. And I think you can see that throughout the system of the city of Chicago. And I can tell you, if you gave me the opportunity, not that you would want to, I could give you a list of schools where once you put a new principal in, you could see that progress immediately happen. And if you don't have a good principal, you can also see what happens in that school. And they need to, if we're going to be serious about education reform, they need to be part of that conversation. In addition, I think the whole conversation about school choice is too narrow and then becomes too polarizing and too political too quickly. And I say that as somebody who loves politics. But the truth is, this is not a battle between a charter versus a public school or neighborhood school. In the city of Chicago, and it's the only city in Chicago, and only in the city of Chicago, it's no other city in the United States of America, every branch of the military runs a high school. And when I was a congressman, in the good days when we used to have earmarks, I pointed at Governor Pence because while his office was next to mine, we have a slightly different view of earmarks. So that's another conversation. I helped create the Marine Math and Science in conjunction with Argonne Lab. We have 6 schools. Rickover Navy, Marine Math and Science. We got them all. 11,000 kids in the Chicago public school system, high schools, are in a military-based high school. 90% go to college. So do not lose sight of that. And for every slot, there's 3 kids trying to get in. I could open more and wouldn't meet the demand. There are some kids, that's the right career. 2 weeks ago, I still do this, I teach. I did a class of leadership at the Marine Math and Science, which shares a space with the Phoenix Military School. Our Air Force Academy just became a level 1 school. 2, I am a big believer in the International Baccalaureate program. Not that I could get in, but I'm a firm believer in it. We had 13 schools we set up in 1997. We hadn't done anything with it. University of Chicago did a study of our IB, International Baccalaureate, versus our selective enrollment, our best high schools, which the city of Chicago has 3 of the best, number 1, number 2, and number 3 statewide best public high schools. The IB with a more diverse student body were 40% more likely to attend college than the selective enrollment. But we hadn't done anything. So now we added 5 more schools, have IB programs in them, and 5 schools now are going full International Baccalaureate every seat in the school. We are doing that. The goal to try and obviously add more quality schools. IB used to be the backup for our selective enrollment high schools. I want real competition between IB and selective enrollment. I want parents to be able to see that they don't have just a few good high schools, and this is my backup in case they don't get into that. Because if you have that, parents are going to flee to the suburbs. I give them real educational choice in the city, whether it's international baccalaureate, whether it's magnet, whether it's selective enrollment, whether it's military, whether it's neighborhood, or whether it's charter. Now that is what choice is about. And Loyola, we found out through this process, Loyola University in the city of Chicago actually has one of the best IB teaching programs in the country. So we've partnered them with Senn High School. And they're driving, now I'm happy to think I didn't drive a hard enough bargain. Loyola's like living off the hog off of this. They think it's the greatest thing they ever had. But what we also have, because we've created this IB high schools, elementary schools now want to be IB, so their kids are trained and educated for the high schools. And it's driving a whole revolution because of the high school piece. Deb noted this. We have set up 5 schools that are pure STEM that go from 9th grade to 14th grade through the community college. One with IBM, one with Microsoft, one with Motorola, one with Cisco, and one with Verizon. Each child gets a mentor, summer internship. You finish 14th grade, good to academic standing, you get a guaranteed job interview at the company that mentored your school. Now, I can obviously go on for hours and hours, but I think the real choice is not one of charter versus public school or neighborhood school. We have to have good neighborhood schools. We have to have IB, selective enrollment, military, magnet, charter, STEM. And that, to me, is what a complete set of choices exist. All of them have something to offer. All of them have something to provide for children. And then parents are actually given a choice. If we're going to be serious about choice, let's give them choice. And they'll then make the choices. And each of those schools are doing better and better on, obviously, some of this is new, but better and better on our freshmen on track for graduation. More and more parents want to get in. And it's actually, like IB, driving a whole level of change through the elementary level because parents want to make sure their kids have the kind of educational rigor early on to get into those now high-quality high schools. Now, I'd like to close on one other thing, which is, Robert Kennedy had a great quote once. Progress is a nice word, but change is the motivator, and change has its enemies. And I'm here to stand before you and tell you that's true. When it comes to educations, sometimes actually, truthfully, fear is the greatest enemy. People are often resistant to change because it's the unknown. But the one thing I know is that change is always constant. That is the one constant we have, which is change. And the key for any political leader, as well as any instructor and educator, is to make change our friend, not our foe. And if all of us do what we can do, and all of us participate in no greater endeavor, which is the education of our children. I'm very proud to have worked for President Clinton. I'm very proud to have worked for President Obama. Obviously, I'm biased. I think they had an incredible senior advisor and chief of staff working for them. I got the good fortune, my parents are alive for both of that, but they're also alive now, to see me also get elected to Congress, to the district that my grandfather, when he moved to the left Eastern Europe as a 13-year-old, came to Chicago, settled in Albany Park on the north side. I represented Albany Park as a congressman. My dad, when he came from overseas to set up a medical practice, represented and took care of a lot of patients from Albany Park. My uncle was a cop in Chicago. He represented Albany Park. My joke is the Emanuel's gone very far. We just haven't traveled very far. But the fact is, the reason I ran for mayor was so I could do what I think is the most fundamental thing to do as somebody in public life. And this actually is to close on what Michelle Obama said at our convention in Charlotte. Everybody in this room walked through the door of opportunity. We're all fortunate. I think this is the greatest country in the world, to think that my father and mother, my father came to this country, my grandfather came to this country, the fact that within 2 generations, their grandson and son could be the mayor of the city of Chicago. Don't let anybody ever tell you this is not the greatest country. It could be not done anywhere else. And Chicago, in my own view, is the most American of American cities. But the real challenge, as Michelle said, every one of us are fortunate. Every one of us care about, obviously, the next generation. But having walked through that door of opportunity, when you reach back, do you grab the handle to that door and close it, or do you grab somebody else's hand and pull them through the door of opportunity? And the only place that you can guarantee a future of another generation is through an education. And I want not just 100% college ready in the city of Chicago, not 100% college bound. I want the kids, when they walk out of the school in Piccolo, in Limblom, in Bateman, and they look at the city of Chicago, and they look at the energy and the excitement of the city and the downtown, do they see their future with that energy, or do they see another future? And the only place that you can bridge that gap, in my view, so it's not just it can only stay a geographic gap and it doesn't become one of opportunity gap, is in the classrooms of the city of Chicago and throughout this country. And there is no better thing to do with your life and public life than to make sure that the next generation is able to fulfill their dreams. And that means making sure that our educational system lives up to their full potential. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Do you want to do Q&A? Yeah, you want to do it? Okay. Thank you. No? Okay. Who do you want me to call on? Well,
Mayor Emanuel, thank you so much for being here with us. I think all of us who've worked in this movement for a long time, for me it's been over 20 years.
You look okay for that, so don't worry about it. Okay.
I think we feel that we have to go beyond evolution to revolution. And you as mayor need not look much further north than Milwaukee to see true choice. So one of the choice options that you didn't discuss is vouchers. Although I did hear you say that some money's going to kids to go to parochial schools. So why shouldn't they be able to go kindergarten through 12th grade?
You just don't think, you don't think in 2 years I've taken on enough fights? You just think one more?
Not you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, okay. Well, first of all, let me attack your premise, if I could, for 1 second. I'm not actually sure I would accept that we need a revolution. Let me say what I think, and I'm not one for evolution either. I think I've proven that in my time in public life. Look, schools, in my view, are both a reflection of what goes on inside as well as what goes on outside. That's number one. There's a constant in this, and that constant is a parent who's involved, a teacher who motivates, and a school principal who is not scared of being accountable. I don't care where a child's from. You have those three things, that's the secret sauce. Now, what we do to reinforce each of those things is key. And you're right, I talked about expanding this set of choices. What I have done in the pre-K area, we have our own resources, so we set up our own race to the top. I'm not part of it, CPS. We have an evaluation set up by the experts, and we allowed charters and parochial to compete for those dollars for the first time based on best case model. That's where we've done it. I'm in the process 2 years in, and I really do believe the choices I've made for high school are the right way to approach it. And that's where I've taken the discussion.
Mayor Emanuel, thank you so much for coming and sharing with us. You may not call yourself an education reformer, but I certainly would call you an education reformer. Most of us are not from Chicago, so we watched.
Well, that doesn't restrict you from not voting there, though. I say that as somebody who was not considered a resident at one point either. So go ahead. It's therapy for me, so get over it. Go ahead.
So we watched the strike proceedings through the lens of the media, and I would hope that you could share just a few of the inside stories about what really went on, what you really tried to accomplish, what you ended up winning, and at the very end, tell us what you really think about Karen Lewis.
Okay. Look, first of all, let me say, I'll give you one anecdote. It was it must have been about this. First of all, I thought this was, well, I'll tell you this anecdote. Let me start there. I I was walking out, I think it was the second or third day of the strike. Let me back up, actually. You understand we used to have an E, which was early, and an R, which was regular enrollment, meaning a quarter of the school started August 14th or August 10th. They went on with the longer school day, everything was worked out. The other 3 quarters were on the regular. So we already had started school. That already had happened under the longer school day for those E. And that's why I always said this was a strike, a choice, the wrong choice for children. I didn't think it was necessary because we already had a model. It was going, it was working, everything. And that's a quarter of the schools. It's like just shy of 150 of them. So it's not like a spattering. So anyway, the third or second day I'm walking out, and Amy, my wife, says, I've never seen you in the eye of the storm calmer. I'm not, you could probably tell I'm not very, my blood pressure doesn't stay at that level. And I said, what do you mean? She goes, I've seen you through an impeachment. I've seen you through, a government shutdown. I've seen you through a re-election for your own election. I've seen you through a financial meltdown, an auto industry meltdown. So I've never seen you calmer. And I said, well, it's not like we're at 4% and they're at 5%. And okay, 4.5. Like we're either going to get a longer school day or we're not. I'm not, I fundamentally believe in my bones as a son of a pediatrician, somebody who worked on this. If a majority or more of your children are at poverty or below, would you really, if you were thinking of their future, design the shortest school day and the shortest school year? There's either a right or a wrong on this. And it has to be done, it gets back to what I just talked about. We don't design each school's longer day. I expect the principal to know what their test scores is, what they're doing to design that day. Because what happens at a Piccolo or what happens at a Lindblom is different than what happens at a Bateman. That's how you hold a principal accountable and a teacher. But to me, that was a fundamental. The other part of this was we hadn't had a real teacher evaluation upgrade since 1965. And the profession, everything in the student body has changed dramatically. Now, after this big fight about the evaluation, first year into it, 78% of the teachers think that the evaluation has helped them professionally. So this big, that's another word, and 78% of them think it's actually helped them in their own professional development. So, and third, let me say this, a lot of people, this was it's not a personality. There were differences about certain things. And that's okay to have differences. I don't think we should take them out on kids. And so this wasn't about Karen or the mayor, Karen Lewis or me. It was about a direction. Now I understand, and let me say this finally, which is why I wanted to bring the school principals into this. Too often, especially in an urban setting, you have huge family, economic, cultural dysfunction, for lack of a better word, come rushing through that front door into the classroom. And you're supposed to put that all on one person to unwind that and help these kids settle down? That's wrong. And I understand deeply that teachers feel put upon that, and they are supposed to untie everything that's going on outside that classroom and just fix it all in the classroom. That's not fair. That's not right. And they, over the years, not just in Chicago Rahm, feel put upon. On the other hand, I have all the time now when I teach schools, 8th grade civics classes. Did one a week ago at Oscar Mayer. The other day at, as I said, marine math and science at the high school. Constantly I run into teachers who go, thanks for the longer day. We finally took science out of math. It's its own subject now in the city of Chicago. One of our greatest, well, you laugh. We had a short school day, so in a lot of schools, science got put into math class because we had no time for a separate subject. That's what this was about. And giving teachers the ability of their time, I'm not going to be there, you're going to be there, to use the time. In a lot of schools, reading went from 50 minutes to 120 minutes. In a lot of schools, school principals have used the time for one-on-one instruction, both for greatness and for kids that needed one-on-one to pick them up. And so it becomes easy in politics to say, well, it's that personality, this personality. Look, my predecessor tried to get a longer school day. He has a different personality than me. In 2003, he tried to add 45 minutes. 2007 contract, he tried to add 30 minutes. Didn't get him. Rich's personality is different than mine. There was a different union president in both those contracts. This is not personality, there was a philosophical difference. So I think we should appreciate the conditions teachers are under, understand it's not just them. There's a wider section of accountability, includes school principals, includes parents. We've done a whole host of things to make sure parents are involved in their kids' lives, education, and get them into that school and being parent partners at parent centers. So that's what it was like. Okay, one more question. You guys pick who? So there's a guy back there. Go ahead.
Right. Mayor, thanks for being here. My name is Tom Luna. I'm from Idaho. I'm the chief of education there. The reason I tell you that is I represent probably one of the reddest states in the nation, and I fit in very well there. But I think what you've done is a good job of highlighting that although politically we probably have very little in common, that reform, improvement, perfection, whatever you want to call it, is definitely bipartisan. My question is specifically about your comments about empowering principals. So I'm curious, how much control do you give principals over those things they're held accountable for? For example, staff assignments, or who are the teachers and who aren't the teachers in their schools, and how what's the process a principal or the authority a principal has to replace or remove or move teachers based on the things that they're going to be held, the principals ultimately going to be held accountable for?
Obviously, I don't want to dive too deep on this, and we can give you and get you some more information. But one of the issues that actually was at stake in the strike, one of the good things we have, in my view, in the city of Chicago that I inherited, was principals have a lot of autonomy as it relates to hiring. And one of the things that was at stake was, given that we were going to have to take some actions in the coming year, was the selection of teachers was at a pool we created downtown and said, here's the only pool you could pick, or does principals still maintain that autonomy and authority to get what they need? Because if you're going to, the truth is, and this is a very, very good question, if you're going to hold me accountable, I want some autonomy in this process. And too often, way downtown, they're like every hour issuing thunderbolts of new guidelines, and like these things come swirling in on these people. So we give them autonomy on hiring. We're now transitioning to a student-based budgeting for school principals. They design their budget, working with the local school LSC, which is a parent board for them. So they have, I think there's a number of principals with like more autonomy than we give. And there's another set of principals that think we give them exactly the right size of it. But we can give you a whole kind of drill down on that, because it's fair. If you're going to hold people accountable, they got to have the ability to design their team. But let me give you one classic example. There are no guidelines we set on the longer day. Now, I happen to believe, and I can give chapter and verse on this, which is principals that have used the longer day, their test scores to design where the time gets distributed versus, an hour versus an hour and a half on math, or 2 hours of reading and writing, of which an hour is class, and the next hour is kind of what it would be called intervention, but the kind of one-on-one instruction. That's for them to design. There's no thunderbolt that this is the only way you can do math, this is the only way. We have the Common Core, that's our educational guidelines, and that's what we have in the city. But how you design the time, where it's distributed, you have to do that. But for the first time ever, each school now has a target for each year, and the students do too. So they can say we didn't know where we were driving towards. With that, again, thank you very much.